Hello, eighth graders, and welcome to um, the English 8B, that should say Unit 2 activity, Close Reading of Poetry. This activity has a few steps. So let's look it over real quick. Step 1 is to read the 2 poems that are in the activity. Step 2, you'll be taking notes and doing a close reading on the poetry. A close reading means that you stop and look for specific things about each poem and dig deeper into the poem beyond just looking at it quickly. And then step 3, you have some choices in step 3. You're going to create a project, and we'll go over some of the options that you have. Lastly, you'll contact an English teacher to get approval for your project and for them to edit and revise or give suggestions if needed. Okay, so let's start by doing step 1 and read each of these poems and look more closely at them. This one is called The Road Not Taken. It's by Robert Frost, one of my very favorite poems. The interesting thing about this poem, I've read it more times than I can count, and each time I pick up something new. So let me read this a little slowly so that you can maybe think about themes or think about what is this poet really saying in this poem. Look beyond just the words and think, what are the symbols he's trying to use? What do the roads symbolize? What do the trees symbolize? What do the leaves symbolize? Because it's all much more than just taking a walk in the woods. So here we go. The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler, long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same, and both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet, knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere, ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Beautiful poem. Okay, so let's look closely. What is he really saying in this poem? Again, it's not just about a walk in the woods. Poets' words are almost always a metaphor or a symbol for greater, bigger ideas. Mainly, he's talking about the speaker having an internal conflict, a decision he has to make, right? The roads in the poem represent life paths, not just paths. Both wanting where and covered in leaves no step had trodden black. What do those words mean? It means that both his choices are unknown, they're unexplored paths. No one has been there. He can't possibly know which decision is truly the right decision because he has to take one path of life on his own. It's his journey to take. He knows that way leads on to way, and he doubted if he should ever come back. In other words, life has a way of moving forward. You don't usually get to go back in life and retry. You get one life. It's not like a video game. He knows he won't be able to go back and change his decision and take a different path. His path will lead to another decision, leads to another decision, and he knows that's the way life is. Will he be happy with this decision? He has no way of knowing, and he knows there's no turning back. But he says he took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. What could that mean? The one less traveled by? Maybe it was a decision that most people didn't think was the best decision, or maybe it was one that was more of a risk that people hadn't done. We don't know what decision he's talking about. Is he talking about his career, his choice of a partner in life, his place to live? Who knows? We don't know. That's kind of up to you, the reader, to make up on your own. All right, so let's think about themes. I think by now you might have picked up on some themes. And really, there's no one right or wrong answer. There's lots of options here. What's he trying to say? Maybe he's just talking about making choices. Maybe he's talking about how much choices and decisions change your life. Or maybe he's giving advice take the time to choose your path wisely, stand there and evaluate. He did kind of a pros and cons in this poem, right? He looked at one path, he looked at the other. This one looked nice. This one maybe was a little bit better. He said it had a better claim. So maybe really knowing your decisions and being careful about your decisions, choosing wisely. Or maybe he's saying, you are the author of the book of your life. You can only determine what your life looks like and the paths that you'll take. Or maybe he's saying, like he was in the end, that the choice he made all the difference. Sounds pretty content, right? He doesn't sound upset with his decision. So maybe it's about being content with your life. Or maybe thinking outside the box a little bit, maybe it's about having hope, having the joy of having the option to make decisions and having hope for the best. Okay, now the other poem is much shorter. This is written by Emily Dickinson. It's called I'm Nobody, Who Are You? Students a lot of times have trouble with this one because it is so short. So let me read it and then we'll analyze this one. Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. Don't tell, they'd advertise, you know. How dreary to be somebody. How public, like a frog. To tell one's name the livelong June to an admiring bog. Short and sweet, isn't it? Okay, now let's think about that one. Let's look closely at this one. Is she talking about frogs in a pond? No, obviously. So what are her words representing? Here was the first stanza again. Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. Don't tell, they'd advertise, you know. In my belief, in this poem, Emily is saying she's nobody and don't tell. She likes to be unknown, not popular. And she's found someone to be a nobody along with her. Don't tell, they'd advertise, you know. In other words, she's saying, let's keep it to ourselves. Let's keep our little secret. Let's be happy, just you and me. If we start talking about it, then we'll get noticed, and trouble comes along with being noticed, in her opinion. Here was part of the second stanza. To tell one's name the livelong June to an admiring bog. She's saying, how awful to be like a frog. You know what frogs do? They croak, right? They croak all night long in their bog, as if asking for attention, as if asking to be seen and to be heard and to be known, right? Shouting amongst a crowd who you are and having people admire you. She says, that's not what I want. That's not what I want in life. I don't want to be popular. I don't want to be part of the popular crowd. I don't want to be one of the rich and famous. In her time, she actually was. And I think this is her expressing how much she disliked the fame, that she loved being a poet, but probably disliked the fame that came along with her beautiful words. And she wanted to hide from it and not be like a frog, begging for attention. Okay, so themes. There's a lot of possible themes in I'm Nobody, Who Are You? What's she trying to say? Maybe it's just to be happy with yourself, to be content, being that quiet little person amongst a crowd, not seeking attention. Or maybe it's to not seek fame and fortune. Maybe it's more about what was in the first stanza, that she had found somebody. Don't tell, right? There's a pair of us. Maybe she's found joy in finding that person, her somebody, her partner. And she likes just being partners together. Maybe it's about an even bigger idea. Maybe it's about self-identity or self-love, being, again, happy with yourself, knowing yourself, and not needing others to give you approval or praise, not needing those likes on Instagram or Facebook in order to be happy. Okay. So that was step one. We read them and we've already kind of done a little bit of step two. Step two is to fill in this chart as you go back and look over each of these poems on your own. So you put down what you think the theme is or the main idea. If you need help figuring out the form of each poem, you can ask a teacher for help, but I think you could probably figure that out. Each of them have rhyme, so that's a bit of a hint there. The one I really wanted to point out is the comparisons or analogies. So remember, comparisons are similes or metaphors. So I put down here, these are metaphors or similes that you find in each poem. Here's an example. How public, like a frog. He's saying she's saying, Emily was, this is a simile. It's comparing two things using the words like or as. So saying, how awful to be like a frog, to be croaking like a frog. So she's comparing a person to a frog, right? Or comparing fame to frogs. And then on your own, do you see any similarities within these two poems? There could be a few similarities, in my opinion, and maybe it has to do with what the speaker and writer of the poem was really deeply talking about. Maybe it relates to the theme of each poem. Um, and then the last part of this, if you've decided on a theme, then pick out some lines, some quotes that specifically relate to the theme. And to dig even deeper, explain why you think those relate to the theme. So if you feel like the theme in The Road Not Taken is choosing your life decisions wisely, then pick a line that you think really explicitly says that in the poem. Okay? Now, step 3, wanted to explain. Once you've filled in that chart, you'll be turning that portion of the project in, but that's only half of this project. Step 3 is the other half, the other 50 points. And you get to be creative. So you'll take the information you gathered from your table, from your chart, and create something that is your own. So it could be a slideshow. It could be with images that are similar to the poem. You could throw in your favorite lines from the poem and explain how they relate to the theme. Or you could talk about the similarities between the two poems and show images that relate. Or you can make a collage, so lots of images thrown together either by hand or in an actual document. So it could be clip art, it could be images of your personal life that you think relate to this poem. If there's one poem that particularly stands out to you, feel free to talk about it and explain how you think it relates to your own life. Maybe relate it to social media, maybe relate it to having to choose a career someday or choose to go to college. Or if you'd rather write an essay, if you feel more comfortable just writing, then feel free to do that too. If you're not sure and you have an idea that's not one of these ideas, reach out to an English teacher, run your idea by us, and I'm sure we'll probably approve it. I thought I'd show you an example of one of these. And so let me show you real quick. Oh, hang tight. Let me get to where I wanted to show you. Okay. So here's an example of a project that was made. So this student just took a beautiful image that they found of a road and chose their favorite lines from the poem. The student actually created this collage with all these beautiful images. She was thinking of paparazzi when she read this. So she overlaid an image of paparazzi with a bog, kind of beautiful. And then this was a way to show how the two are very similar in what they were thinking. Now, this is a good project, but there's not a whole lot of explanation in it. So it's creative. And because they did their own artwork on one of the slides, we gave them full credit. But to get the best lesson, really explain what part stood out to you personally. Or take all the data from the chart and put it in a slideshow. So just wanted to show you an example. Basically, enjoy doing this project. Run your ideas by a teacher. Feel free to be creative. If you've got an out-of-the-box idea, we'd love to see it. But make sure you do step 2. You'll be turning that part in, and then also turn in your creative project. If you do step 2 and you're totally stumped, again, reach out to an English teacher, and we can just give you a blank slideshow with some ideas, like as a template, and have you fill that in, okay? All right. Well, good luck with this, 8th graders. You should have fun with it. Hopefully this was helpful and made it easier to understand these poems, and we look forward to grading your work.